Hello everybody, welcome back to the second episode of 2020 Conversations, a series where we examine the thoughts and opinions of original thinkers of our time. In today's episode, we will look at surveillance, personal data, and privacy in the age of coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic. Yuval Noah Harari is a famous author and historian, and Edward Snowden is a renowned dissident and whistleblower, and together they will share some light on this topic. I find it fascinating that, despite coming from different backgrounds, their opinions and thoughts echo each other very closely. Let's start by having Edward Snowden explain the technical aspects of how modern-day surveillance and monitoring works in the context of smartphones and location.
There are a number of ways that you can track the location of someone through their phone. There are these cell phone towers themselves, but there's also the wireless network that you're connected to, and then what other wireless networks are around you that you're not connected to. This you can think of as what wireless networks your phone can hear. And so these wireless network identifiers are then collected and they're mapped out against GPS. And then they know if you can see mom's Wi-Fi and neighbor Ted's Wi-Fi and the library Wi-Fi all at the same time, you have to be within range of these things. It becomes a proxy for location. Now that we know all of our phones can and are being tracked at all times just by being turned on, phone companies have it at a bare minimum. Facebook probably has it, Google probably has it, Apple probably has it, and many, many other companies you've never even heard of that run ad networks. What this really means in a France or a United States is they go, well, look, we're aware of privacy concerns. So what we're going to do is we're going to depersonalize this information. We're going to anonymize it. And we're not going to look at individuals. We're going to look at the flows of movement of these phones, right? We're not looking at one phone. We're looking at the aggregate movements of phones. The problem is, if you're not tracking one infection or 100 infections, but you're tracking 100,000 infections, contact tracing quickly becomes useless. And more, the precision of location information is either so rough that it is largely useless, which is the case if we're talking about the cell phone networks, the cell phone towers you're near, to very, very precise location information, in which case this information, when you're applying it at scale, cannot be anonymized in a meaningful way. And then there's this big question of, well, where does all that information go? How is it controlled? Who is it being used? It's information about me. I should have some influence over it. I should have control over it. But unfortunately, in the United States, to a large degree, you don't. We need to be able to make sure that the brakes that are being pumped are on the pandemic rather than our society.
Next, Harari and Snowden explain why this is very bad for the rights and liberties of citizens around the world, specifically when the technology enables monitoring to go beyond the outside into the inside of human emotions, thoughts, and biology. Let's have a listen.
What we see is everyone is fearful and hopeless, so worried about today that we have really stopped thinking about what tomorrow will look like as a result of the decisions that we take today. The tracking and monitoring of the movements of the whole of the human population.
New surveillance technologies that are now deployed just to deal with this coronavirus outbreak. When it's over, some governments may say, yes, but there is a second wave of corona coming, so we have to be prepared. And there is Ebola, and there is also regular flu. Why not protect people against that too with this new surveillance system? So the tendency would be to prolong it indefinitely. And in this way,
what's happening now, it's really a watershed in the history of surveillance. First of all, we see mass surveillance systems entering and being adopted in democratic countries which previously resisted them.
No matter how it is being used, what is being built is the architecture of oppression that you might trust who runs it. You might go, I don't care about Mark Zuckerberg, but someone else will have this data eventually. Some other country will have this data eventually. In your country, a different president will have control of this data eventually, and someone will abuse it. Now, could China use it for something interesting to them? Yes. And what happens when they abuse it? And I believe they already have. They're running internment camps in China. And these practices, when they don't get pushback, when they don't get condemnation, when they don't face sanction for this, will become normalized and they will spread. And we'll face them in Russia. We'll face them in Iran. And then we'll face them in Poland. We'll face them in Hungary. We'll face them throughout Europe. We will face them in the United States because we will face them everywhere.
Secondly, we see the nature of surveillance changing from over-the-skin surveillance to under-the-skin surveillance. Over-the-skin surveillance is, say, the government or a corporation watching, monitoring where you go, what you buy, what you watch on television. Under-the-skin surveillance starts with monitoring your body temperature and blood pressure,
medical condition. So that's really going a step further.
This is, of course, necessary to deal with the epidemic. But if this remains in the long run, there is a danger of establishing new, unprecedented totalitarian regimes. Ultimately, it's about hacking your body and brain and knowing what you're feeling each and every moment, not just pain or coughing, but our emotions are a biological phenomena exactly like the flu or like temperature. So if you have a surveillance system that can tell you if somebody is sick, that same surveillance system can also tell you how they feel each and every moment, because feelings are also biological phenomena. They can know if you are now scared of what I'm saying, if you dismiss it as nonsense, if you are laughing, if you are crying. So just imagine a place like North Korea. 10 years in the future, fast forward, North Korea, every citizen has to wear a biometric bracelet on the arm, and you have to watch this big speech by big leader. And when you watch the speech, they are watching what's happening in your body. You can smile and you can clap your hands, but if you're angry about the big leader, they'll know it. You have no control over what's actually happening in your body. So this is no longer science fiction. This is already within reach of present-day technology. It's the kind of totalitarian regime that even George Orwell in 1984 couldn't imagine. But it could happen in a few years if we are not careful. And the coronavirus epidemic can be this watershed event when governments going under our skin becomes acceptable. So the danger is there. And in order to prevent it, people should realize they shouldn't have to choose between privacy and health. They should have both. When I go today to my family doctor, I don't have to choose between health and privacy. In order to get good medical care, I give the doctor a lot of private information about my medical condition, my habits, even my sex life. If there is some sexually transmitted disease, the doctor might start asking me questions about my sex life, things that I don't even want my husband or wife to know. And I trust my doctor to keep this information private and just use it to take care of me without telling it to my boss or to my spouse or to the government. So I can have both health and privacy. And it should be the same with this system. One guideline is, yes, we need a new system of monitoring people with disease to stop epidemic, but it should be separate healthcare authority, completely separate from the police, from the army, from the secret police. It's not their business. So we need a separate authority to be in charge of this surveillance. And secondly, surveillance must always go both ways. It's not just the government monitoring the people. At the same time, the people should monitor the government. This is a democracy. In a dictatorship, it only goes both ways. The government watches you all the time. You don't know what the government is doing. In a democracy, it should go both ways. For instance, right now, governments all over the world are handing out money like water. Like the US is now having a rescue package of $2 trillion. Now, as a citizen, I want to know who is making the decisions and where the money goes. Do they use it to save big corporations whose owners are friends with the politicians? Or do they use the money to save the small businesses of ordinary people? I want, okay, you monitor my health, that's important. At the same time, I monitor what you do with the money. If you have this two-way system of surveillance, then this is democratic.
On that proactive note, our second episode is concluded. I hope you have enjoyed the thoughts of Harari and Snowden. Episode 3 and 4 are in the works. They will feature more thoughts from experts and original thinkers. If you enjoy content like this, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.